Hi everyone, I hope you're well. My name is Tanmay Singh. I'm the co-founder of Faith Career, a boutique career management firm. We specialize in helping aspirants to study abroad and in India at highly ranked institutions. If you wish to either study abroad or in India, please comment below or reach out to us via Instagram, WhatsApp, and we would be glad to help you. Today, we would be talking to Garvit Agrawal. Garvit scored 755 in the GMAT Focus Edition, which corresponds to the 100th percentile. He has kindly agreed to share his experience, advice, tips, and more. Let's find out. Hi, Garvit. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it. And congratulations to you once again for the brilliant score. And to begin with, could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be able to share my experience and hope it's helpful for someone or the other. I know it was an arduous journey and not something that can be taken too easily.
Right.
So about me, currently, I'm a product manager at Converse AI. It's a US-based startup that deals with voice AI, currently targeting staffing industry.
Right.
And apart from that, previously, I worked with Byju's for over 6.5 years in multiple capacities. I started as a content and video editor and finally grew up the rank to become a product manager, looking after the strategies for GTM and launch in multiple markets.
Right. Right.
As for my educational background, I'm an automobile engineer from MIT Manipal. So again, the engineering background and having prepared for JEE gave me some sort of edge for quant, which I did not find it that difficult. But yeah, verbal was a struggle in itself.
Right. Okay, all right. Now, since you have scored exceedingly well in the GMAT, our audience is eager to know your journey. Could you please tell us about it?
Sure. So it was a 6-month journey when I decided that I want to do an MBA and I want to do it from a premier ranked institute from Europe or US. That is when I decided that GMAT would be the way to go ahead. The first things first, what I did was I took a GMAT mock test to understand where do I lie, what the GMAT test is all about. Like to be very frank, before even taking the mock, I did not know that there will be 5 options. They're used to having 4 options, so that's what I had in my mind.
Right.
The mock really helped me understand what the test is all about, how the timing pressure will creep up on you, what sort of adaptive nature it has. And it also helped me understand what are my strengths, what are the areas that I need to work on. So that essentially gave me a baseline to start work from. I realized that quant is something where the most important thing is GMAT basically tests you only up to your middle school math. It does not go beyond that. So it's all about having all your basics and fundamentals very clear.
Right.
If you alter in that, it's very easy that you might end up making a mistake. And GMAT essentially knows, because they have tested it out on so many students, they have those data points that which are the answers that students can lead to. For example, like if you do one silly error, one calculation mistake, or one particular step where they know that kids may go wrong, that option would be there. So you might confidently end up marking that. And once the score is revealed, you'll be like, damn, how did this question go wrong?
Right.
So it was about getting to know that and work on that. Then I think initially, because I took the classic version, there were 2 classic attempts that I gave. And very frankly, sentence correction was something that was a very weak point of mine. And both my classic attempts were brought down significantly by sentence correction.
Right.
So I knew that this is going to be a huge challenge. Luckily, GMAT had announced that they will be rolling out Focus Edition, which will do away with sentence correction. So after my second classic attempt, I just took a 1-month break to see like what is it that comes out with the Focus Edition. And then with Focus Edition, the same thing, did the first mock and understood what are the baseline and what is it that I need to work on. So for Focus, the concern was with regarding DI.
Right.
Now, DI is all about time management, to be very honest. It's not about solving those complex questions or navigating to them. It's about how well you are able to manage time. And like before I delve too much into specifics of each particular section, I think it's most important for everyone to know is that the first thing that they should work on while they are starting their prep is to target accuracy. Sometimes they just jump into the timing or accuracy or both together. That does not work. First, you need to understand what GMAT is all about, whether you're able to get the right answers or not. Once you're able to do that, then it's about managing your time. Because once you know how to reach to a right answer, it's all about how can you fast track it. So
Right.
that I did was I did untimed practice to only focus on accuracy. Once that was done, I started with timed practice. Now, because obviously timing and accuracy together did not bode well, then I had to devise a strategy on how I could make both of them work. And for that, it was the most important piece was uh, referring to OG material. That was gold for me.
Right. Okay, sounds good. And in how many attempts were you able to get this score?
So there were two classic attempts with 660 and 700, and both of them were marred by sentence correction.
Right.
Then the first attempt was 675, and the next one was 755.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. And now, since in the previous response you talked about OG, would you recommend that it is one of the resources that students should use, and which other resources did you use to prepare for your GMAT?
I restricted all my prep from OG itself, and I advise students to do that. But then again, it's up to their discretion. It's about what works for them. Some people find some methodologies working for them for RC or CR or for quant in general. But for me, OG in itself sufficed. The best part was OG has the questions that were used in the GMAT exam once upon a time.
Right.
And these are retired questions. The solutions help you understand what was the GMAT approach of tackling that particular question. That is very critical in understanding how GMAT operates, how they think about a particular alternative, and they see that, okay, this particular alternative or this particular option is incorrect for so-and-so reasons.
Yeah.
If you're able to get into that framework, it becomes very easy to tackle questions.
Right. Okay, sounds good. And Garvit, what was your mode of preparation? Like, did you study for a fixed number of hours or so? And I mean, broadly speaking, our audience would be interested to know what is it that you did which was different in terms of preparation, which sets you apart from an average test taker?
I don't think there was anything that I did differently as such. I think it was more about sticking to what was my target for that particular week or for that particular month, let's say. So in terms of, let's say, accuracy or timing, if that is something that I was working on, so I would ensure that I'm able to meet that. And let's say if I'm giving 3 hours in a day to prepare, right, I would ensure that at any point in time, I have at least half the amount of time that I'm giving dedicated for understanding the solutions.
Right.
I see a lot of people, they go down this rabbit hole where they are like, if I attempt more questions, I'll understand what is it that I'm doing wrong. It's something where if you utilize OG for doing that, you'll very, very quickly run out of questions. And OG questions are good. So it's about spending that time in understanding where it is that you are going wrong and what is the reason why you're going wrong.
Right.
So working on those two things were my essential arsenal, you could say, during my prep. The other thing was during the 6-month course of prep, right? I was working in the Pacific working hours. So my work timing according to India was 9:30 in the evening to 6:30 in the morning. So what I had already planned by then is that I would give my exam during the 8 to 11 slot.
Right.
So I ensured that from that for that particular time period, right, from 8 to 11, I am awake and I am able to concentrate. So I would ensure that either I'm studying during that time, or if not, I'm not lazing around or sleeping or indulging in any other activity, right? Even if I'm not studying, I will occupy myself with a nourishment sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just reading articles or going through people's blogs, journey, how did they overcome it? Or even for that case, right? Reddit, the sub for GMAT is quite helpful. Like apart from all the quote unquote promoted posts that you see over there.
Yeah.
It's good to see some real journeys and understand what is it that worked for them.
Right.
My major focus was during that 8 to 11 hour, I have to be active.
Right.
Getting into that grind eventually helped me because I think two of my attempts were on the days on which I had worked the night before.
Yeah, yeah. I believe essentially you were trying to kind of fix your circadian rhythm, right?
Yes.
Your biological clock, which, as we can see, ultimately paid off, right? Okay. Now, Garvit, whenever uh, an individual prepares for any exam for that matter, they might face some challenges, right? Some roadblocks. What challenges did you face while preparing for the GMAT?
So certain challenges that I faced, I don't know whether others would face this or not, but there were instances when probably I had to elongate my working hours. So it was challenging at times to stay active from 8 to 11 or to prepare for that time. And no, not just that, right? In verbal, especially, right? Quant is something, it was about understanding solutions or probably finding another way to deal with that particular question. Worst comes to worst, it's okay to let go of a question. If you are not understanding the approach, or even if that comes in exam, you're like, it's not an approach that would click to you normally, no matter how many times you go through a solution or something, right? So it's okay to let go of such questions during practice. Like I struggled with that initially.
Yeah.
And for verbal, the struggle was sometimes the GMAT explanations were not enough.
Right.
Because they were probably worded in such a way that the tone or what is it that GMAT is trying to convey was not clear. And then you would have your own doubts that, hey, this is the reasoning, which is why I eliminated this particular option. Does that work or does that not work? Or for this reason, if I've selected an option, does that work? So for connecting with peers, right, on multiple forums like Faith Career or other communities, right, you connect with them, understand that, hey, this was my logic, this was my modus operandi. Do you this works? Do you think this is the approach that can be taken? Or is there something more that's there? Even GMAT for that matter, right? The threads that are there, the answers by multiple experts over there, right? It helps you understand what are the alternative ways that you could particularly think about that particular option. So essentially, the biggest challenge was in verbal. I used to go with selection in the beginning, like what is the right answer, rather than focusing on what are definitely not the right answers.
Got it.
Changing that mindset was quite important.
Right. Got it. And, since you have taken the exam 4 times, did you alter your study plan in any way during your preparation?
So, my last attempt for focus, I took that, I guess within a month of giving my first attempt. So the first attempt of focus was on its inaugural day. For that, it was more about focusing on DI, because quant, I knew that either it will be a definite correct answer, or it will be a answer which I would have confidently marked it wrong. So quant, it was just about practicing it and reading the question, understanding the knack of it, like what is the question actually asking for. There were instances when the question would ask you for X square and I ended up answering X. Because in the rush of things, you're like, yeah, this is what the question would be asking for. Or the question asks you for the mod of X minus Y. And you're like, yeah, it would be asking me for X minus Y, right? So these are some instances where I would get blindsided. So it was more about keeping myself calm and composed for quant is what I focused on during my prep. Because after giving 2 attempts for classic, I knew that these are my areas that I need to really work on. As for verbal, the RC and CR were pretty good. But with SC gone, the challenge was again for time management.
Right.
He is somewhere where people usually used to find time and they used to utilize that time for RC and CR. So again, for RC and CR, the strategy was very clear. Go about elimination as quick as you can. Now, for RC, it's about one thing that was very clear, right? Usually what would happen is I would get influenced or biased by my own perception of that particular subject. And that would lead you away from the choices or away from the information that is present in the text. These are some instances or occurrences where students end up making mistakes. So not getting biased by your own perception of things or the information that you possess of that particular subject, but restricting yourself to what is the information given in the text is something that really helped me.
Right.
For the last attempt, right, for focus, I knew that essentially I had to work on my DI. DI was the one where I had struggled during my first attempt. So it was more about time management. And what I did was during that 1 month, I gave 3 mocks. And all that I did was analyze those 3 mocks over and over.
Right.
There was nothing else, not a single question that I prepared apart from it. So just analyzing those mocks really helped me understand where is it that I was losing out on time. For example, there were questions, not just in DI, right? Even in quant, there was a question that I had answered correctly in 2 minutes or so. I'd be like, boss, 2 minutes is too much to answer a particular question. There might be an experimental question, which I don't know is experimental and would end up taking 4-5 minutes. So how do I balance that out? And 2 minutes is a threshold that I set for myself. Like if I'm taking 2 minutes for a question, it's too much. So accordingly, people can set their own threshold, like, hey, this is the time limit. If I'm spending much more than that, even if I'm getting that question, it's time to go back and see what are the ways in which this question could have been solved quickly. AI, very important thing, there's a lot of fluff that's always given in the questions. And while meandering through it, right, people always get lost. For example, when they come across MSR or graphs, comprehending what that graph is all about, right? Understanding those plots, understanding those scattered points. Lose out on what the question is asking for. By the time they come to the question would be like, hey, was this a positive increase or a negative increase? So it's essential that you read the question stem first in DI. And then you particularly find that piece or that information that is present and go to that, target that, and then come back to answer the question. Sorry. So I think it was along those lines, right? Because DI is a mix of quant and CR. It's nothing more than that.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. And since we just talked about all of this, now let's focus on the common traps, right? What common traps should a test taker keep an eye out for while attempting quant and verbal questions in the real test?
So for quant, like I said earlier, right, it's don't get blindsided or don't rush through things because you feel familiarity with that particular question. You know that this question will be asking when you come across a probability question or question that involves absolute values, you'll be like, yeah, this is what the question will be asking. So when you rush through things, you're bound to miss out on what GMAT might be asking over there. Double check what the question is asking and then go on to attempt it.
Right.
Second thing is, if you're able to solve a question in, let's say, 30-40 seconds, give yourself some time, compose yourself. Don't get overconfident, and at the same time, don't get underconfident, right? There are 2 instances that can happen over there. If you get overconfident, you're like, yes, I am doing it, I have done it right. Spend another 10-20 seconds to just see whether everything is in place. Is that what the question was asking? Have I done that? Have I solved for X? And don't get underconfident when you see an easy question or that you're able to solve easily, that, hey, did I mess up my previous question? It's gone. You can't do anything about it.
Right.
So that you have is just note down that question and come back to it at the end. But don't get underwhelmed or overwhelmed while solving quant questions. That's what usually happens. As for verbal, right, one of the things that people seem to do is they get attached to an option. They marry themselves with that idea that, yeah, this is the one that would work or this is the one that is correct. Don't do that. It's not your life partner.
Right.
Understand what would work, what would not work, right? If you solve enough OG questions and you understand the psychology of how GMAT is approaching an answer choice, you would know that, hey, when you're reading a question, you would know that, hey, these kind of 2 or 3 options would be there as a trap for sure.
Right.
So it's more about, right? I'm not afraid of those 1,000 questions that you have practiced once. I'm afraid of that one question that you have practiced 1,000 times, right? It's one of those lines, right? You practice the same number of questions that you want and understand that whether you're able to get in the framework that GMAT operates from.
Right.
So once that works, I think everything would fall in place.
Right.
And again, like I spoke for RC, right? Don't get biased by your awareness or the information that you seem to have about that particular topic. I remember I faced that particular question from the topic that I used to work on in Byju's, and I got so overconfident by it that I ended up making 2 mistakes in that question.
Yeah.
So it was a real eye opener.
Right.
Now, as for DI, right? No, not a common trap as such. What I would suggest is if you could increase your speed for DS questions, data sufficiency, because now these are not questions that ask you to solve for boundary ranges or conditions in which X would lie. Sorry. Okay. So it's very easy by just reading statements, or you would know that, okay, these are the cases that would work. And you can, by practice, obviously, you can solve those questions in 1 minute, 1 minute, 15 seconds. DI, you get 2 minutes, 15 seconds per question. And if you're able to solve data sufficiency questions on an average in 1 minute, 15 seconds, you'll be able to save up 1 minute for question of DS. That 1 minute will be very useful for MSR or two-part analysis, graphs and tables, pieces where you feel that you will require more time.
Yeah.
Usually people end up spending a lot of time in the initial questions, and in the last they have to hurry. So doing that is also something that they should avoid. Time management is really the key over there.
Right.
The next thing would be in DI, sometimes people hesitate to use calculators. Either they are overconfident by their own calculations, or they are like, it would be too mammoth a task to do this calculation. Just simplify as much as you can on the worksheet that you have available, and then finally go on to use calculators. You don't have to do all the calculation on calculators, but again, you have to know how you can optimize your time well. If you find more speed while making the initial sets of calculation on a piece of paper using pen, do that, and then the final one can be done easily using calculators.
Right.
So I think that those would be my tips to not fall in the traps.
Right. Avoid the common traps. Right. Now, Garvit, what are some of the things that GMAT students should not do, both during their preparation and during their exam? Like, are there certain things from your experience of taking the exam 4 times and ultimately acing it with a brilliant score? Do you think that there are a few things that aspirants should definitely not do?
The one thing that comes to my mind is do not struggle with GMAT. When I say with GMAT, I mean with your prep or with any question that you come during the exam. When you're struggling with it, know that it will affect your subsequent questions. Like when you're prepping, right? I come across instances where students have messaged me that, hey, I was solving this question, I could not solve it, I did not understand the solution. Can you help me out with this? You solve all the questions. Let go of that particular one. It's okay to come back to it at the end. But I think in this age of instant gratification, right, we want all our answers quickly, in the moment, when we want it, on demand. I think that's one thing that people will have to work on while they are preparing for GMAT or when they are giving their exam. Like, do not struggle with any question that you come. Be okay to move on from it, go on to the next one. And the strategy that I used for my exam, right, it was eat the frog first. Like I know that I'm not that good at verbal, so I attempted verbal first, because even if I ace it or if I flunk it, I know I have the other 2 sections to cover up my ass.
Right. That's okay. Go on. Everyone's an adult here. That's okay.
So with that in mind, right, it always used to boost my confidence. I come across situations where, again, it works for people. I'm not saying that they have to change this again based on someone else's perception, but then if you attempt your best scoring section first, and let's say worst case worst, it does not work for you, you will be really demoralized for the rest of the sections.
True.
Now that is something that will really affect their course of exam.
True.
I think that's pretty much it, right? Like, reach out to your peers who are already in the same journey. Reach out to a lot of coaches or tutors or experts that are there. They'll be able to help you out. And find out way in which you can tackle a question or you can tackle the exam that works the best for you. give you an instance, right? During my entire course of journey,
Mhm.
I never solved the CR question using negation technique.
Mhm.
A lot of people talk about negation technique and how it can help you solve questions when you're left with last two options, how you can go about it.
Yeah.
It's something that never came naturally to me. No matter how hard I tried on using it, it did not work out for me.
Right.
Seeing certain questions that I was facing difficulty with, like how do I eliminate these last two options, and seeing others do that very easily, I did not get bothered by it that, hey, this is working for them and I have to start using that technique. Like even after trying that multiple times, I realized that that's not the way to go for it. It does not work for me. I should not try that.
Yeah.
So don't get biased by what is working for others will definitely work for you. It's about you take everyone's opinion, you take everyone's advice, but at the end of the day, see what is the best piece that fits in your puzzle that can help you solve it.
Hmm.
I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm listening to every single thing that you are saying. And I'm really hoping that our audience here are also kind of benefiting from the same, right? Garvit, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for all the tips and strategies that you shared. I am truly hoping that all our viewers are going to benefit from your expertise and from everything that you shared thus far in this video. If you haven't already, dear viewers, please subscribe to our channel, like the video, comment if you have any questions or concerns. Feel free to join our GMAT group. I will share the link of it in the description below. Right? Garvit, thank you so much once again. I appreciate your time, efforts, and the energy that you put in this session.
No worries at all.
Okay, great.